Good morning, Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025, here in House Transportation. After our informative field trip yesterday with the Agency of Transportation, we're all back to get back to work on miscellaneous DMV bill. And we're going to start right off and go through the bill, the entire bill with the DMV on their position on each section of the bill. And our Deputy Commissioner, Matt Russo, is back in the chair. And we appreciate you joining us and helping us understand the DMV's position on miscellaneous.
For the record, Matt Russo, Deputy Commissioner DMV. I didn't bring any show and tell plates this time. All right, we'll just kick it off with section 1. Definition of pleasure car. So this is just updating the definition of a pleasure car to include hybrid vehicles, plug-ins, battery electric, to align with other changes in statute. Section 2, advanced driver's license. This is just amending that section to clarify that only a new EDL requires that you bring all of your documents in, not for renewals. Anatomical gift, section 3. This is already in practice, but DMV, we're just clarifying the language that the heart can be placed on the non-driver ID. Section 4, disability placards. We're moving the designation of volunteer from the disability placards. It's already in place right now, so we're just removing that and updating the language.
I might slow you down just a little bit. Do you want to cover or not where or the reason behind them, or in terms of whether they're all DMV oriented? I'm going to pull that. We had a sheet that shows kind of where the origin of them came from. I wanted to grab that and which ones are I'm kind of want to highlight which ones are driven out of the kind of the Modernization Act and which one are driven out of policy requests with the commissioner or from the department itself, or whether they were some level of constituent or driven. And I do have that, so make sure I put them side by side. My apologies. Which I guess they're all in the DMV section so far. So there we go.
I'm going to start.
I just wanted to make sure that I slowed you down before I got any further behind. So I guess I wasn't as quick this morning as everybody else, but it is nice to see all that sunshine. So I think we're on section, we just did 3 here. We're on 4. So
Disability placards, removing the designation of volunteer from the placard. It's no longer used. Identification card fees. This is for the children and families, and waiving the fees from those that are in custody after 14 years.
This is DCF.
Non-driver. This is
Section 4.
We're on section 5.
Oh, what do we replace the placards with for section 4?
So we already allow drivers. So the placard is put in the name of the person with the disability. So as long as that person's in the car, anybody could be driving, as long as that person is in the vehicle with you.
We haven't hit this in a little while. We've been off the
I'm
education world, so we're playing a little catch up. Does
I'd
anybody
love
want
to go back to the beginning. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm the only one.
happy to.
I also was feeling like a little bit, not quite sure where we are.
to go?
Right. So back to section 1.
Sorry.
That's okay. Definition of pleasure car. This has a lot to do with the modernization project. It's including plug-in electric vehicles, battery electric vehicles, and plug-in hybrid electric vehicles into the category of pleasure cars.
And so one of the things we need to do, and I guess that really does slow us down, I'd like to get an idea of whether anybody on the committee feels like this is going to be a section that we need additional testimony. I'm not saying this is the only time you can say that, but I guess I'd like to at least make sure that from your perspective, is there something we need to hear additional about in any of these pieces? We can always do more, but I also want to make sure that there's any that are so straightforward that they might get a check mark right out of the gate, and others that we need to hear more on. So that's started to drive it a little bit differently, but I want to make sure that people are that.
I guess, the first one is just changing this definition, change the fee for these particular things that are now defined differently.
It's going to be aligned with the changes, like the infrastructure fee, for instance, for a pleasure car.
So there'll be a new fee for this, so it does have an effect, so.
It does have an effect, yes.
So this change will add, what's the infrastructure fee? I forget what it was.
That's for electric.
Yeah, the
vehicles.
cost,
Yeah.
200 something for,
or $84.
Like
Double reg-
48
Double
for,
registration
year.
for EVs, half, 1.5 times for plug-in.
hybrid.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out, so it does have a change, so we're adding this, we technically would bring in more revenue.
Yes,
We're adding-
So that would be,
We're at. So let's-
Yeah.
Representative Keiser, please.
so what we're doing here then is increasing the fees on all pleasure vehicles that are not EVs?
no, there's no increase on regular pleasure vehicles.
Okay.
We use the term pleasure vehicle quite a bit in Title 23.
Mhm.
And currently that does not include electric vehicles, hybrid electric vehicles,
Right.
plugins.
Well, my concern is, of course, how the fee is going to get applied.
Lined up money.
And what you're telling me is even though we've changed the pleasure car definition, that the fee schedule is based on some other
Yeah,
definition.
that's what
The- The fee schedule for non-electric and
Mhm.
non-plugins
Yeah.
doesn't change.
Gotcha.
It's just the infrastructure fee that's for the plugins and the all electrics.
Because we kind of went through it in Ledge Council, then JFO, and now the DMV, and they're disjointed. It's hard for me, my memory wise, to keep them that way. So I'm certainly going to ask, and I appreciate that they're both here, that they can sort of comment on each section that we have heard, if there's a significant, if it's technical, legal, and if there's money. So I'm going to definitely be the phone friend piece. And if you have a comment or not, Logan, then we'll go to Representative Pouch or vice versa. Depending on whether this
Well,
section has a
I'll be-
financial aspect.
This doesn't change anything. The fees are already in place.
Yeah.
This is just a definition,
Yeah.
a clarification of a definition.
Well, I thought we were adding like a new type of vehicle to it. Oh, I thought that's what you were saying.
This is just defining pleasure vehicle as to include.
All right, so
The
that's-
fee-
okay.
legislation was passed last
Last
year.
year.
right?
Yeah, I understand. I thought we had like a new type of vehicle.
No, this is really a technical
Yeah.
correction, because what we had in there is it just didn't make a clear connection that we were actually the way last year's language was ambiguous, and that it could be read that we were making these a different type of vehicle from a standard pleasure car,
Okay.
which would have created all sorts of follow-on effects. And so this is just clarifying that
Oh, that's
for
fine.
things that regulate pleasure car, it includes all of these other, newer types of engines and energy systems in cars.
So I should have, I apologize, I didn't get there quite as quickly. We're gonna kind of want to know who requested it? What's the nature of it in terms of it's technical or not, or if it's, a policy change? How about if there's a money impact? And then sort of are we gonna need to hear more? I don't want to try to get through those 4 questions on each kind of section, so we know, everybody knows where we're at in each piece. It's sort of, while we have 3, if these 3 get to help kind of check those boxes, then we would decide whether we need to do more work on it or not. So
I'm just
Representative,
wondering if I'm requesting a paper copy from the copy room. I wonder if anybody else wanted one.
Sure.
One too.
Take it.
Yeah, you'd like one?
Yeah,
I already have,
Anybody else?
Yes, please.
Okay, so 3. Okay, I've got a right to tell me.
okay.
thanks.
Section 2 is also a technical change. This is clarifying that when you come in for an enhanced license, a new enhanced license, you're required to bring your documents in with you, not for a renewal. We don't require that you bring your documents in for a renewal.
So there's no money impact to this section.
And is that a change in policy? Or just
Yeah, just clarifying. Section 3, anatomical gift. It's already in practice that we allow organ donors on non-driver IDs. This is just a technical clarification in statute that non-drivers can also receive the anatomical gift. That's again, no impact on money. Disability placards removes the designation of volunteer from the placard. It's not needed. It's not in practice right now. This does not change anything other than just a technical change in statute, no money involved.
Like placards are that's a thing that
Disability
you
placards that
hang.
hang from your visor.
Okay.
The volunteer for disability, these are the drivers that take people on the Medicare routes or things of that nature. Do we need to hear any additional piece on this in any way? The thoughts will go back to that, I guess.
So the state is still issuing license plates and or placards for disabilities,
Yes.
and this is just clarifying that.
Just clarifying, you still will be able to receive a placard for somebody that's disabled. It'll be in their name still.
Okay.
But as long as they're in the vehicle, drive.
And can people who are eligible for that request either a license plate or a placard?
Correct.
Okay.
So it just allows a non-disabled person to be in the car with a placarded handicap vehicle.
Correct.
Okay.
Section 5, identification card fees. The section waives the non-driver fee for those in DCF custody over the age of 14. So there would be an impact monetarily.
Which we did hear, I think was only,
De minimis, maybe?
well, it was, I don't want to say the wrong number, I had $15,000 in my,
Yes, that's
well, not only.
But it would also be moving money from one area of the state to another. Like it's not complete lost revenue, right? It's just, we're not losing that revenue from DCF and moving it to the transportation fund. It's just staying with DCF effectively. Is that-
Effectively,
Yeah.
DCF used to pay around $15,000 a year for these things,
Yeah.
and now it just no longer pay that. So DMV will lose 15,000 and DCF will keep it.
Thanks.
Section 6, state municipal fire department and rescue organization motor vehicles. This is in line with the EV infrastructure fee. We currently do not tax those vehicles. And it's a one-time fee for their plates. So this is exempting them from the infrastructure fee to align with the registration fee that is not charged.
Representative Thompson.
Do they pay, theoretically, they pay gas or diesel tax though?
If they were, yeah, well, I'm not sure specifically. No, I believe that they're away from that as well. But you're talking about IFTA or you're talking about just diesel at the pump?
Well, just because my understanding, the theory of the EV infrastructure fee was to make up for the lost gas
Right.
tax for EV.
I see what you're saying,
So
yes.
if the parallel is that those vehicles don't pay registration, it's not the same thing to have them not pay the equivalent of gas tax would be.
Because they're waived,
They are.
yes.
Okay,
So they're aligned with not paying that tax.
okay, thanks.
I'm sorry, they don't, any internal combustion engine vehicle in this area doesn't pay a registration, a discounted registration fee, or is it totally waived?
For municipal,
For municipals and counties,
municipal does not,
they don't pay anything at all.
if it's a state vehicle.
We were told that they did, it was low, but that's.
Yeah, like-
It's like $12 or something.
Oh, right, for a registration fee, not
I'm
for.
sorry, so what fee we're trying to,
So right now, we're waiving the EV infrastructure fee. They pay a one-time $12 fee for their plate, and then they don't pay, it's good for 5 years. They do have to renew it, but it's a zero fee.
or an internal combustion
Correct.
vehicle now, they pay the initial 15. And we're saying this would waive that for an EV vehicle.
But can I just check, I mean, Rep. Thomason was saying that, I mean, if it's a non-EV vehicle, they are paying a gas tax if it's non-EV because they're buying gas. So
Unless it's way, yeah.
Unless,
there's no way we can waive that.
And then they're refunded.
Buying gas, so,
They're refunded after the fact.
Oh, they are.
It's totally separate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Municipalities get that money back.
They get that back. So,
Okay.
and this is just for registrations alone.
David, maybe you could,
I was gonna say, we have a process set up under the gas, diesel fuel taxes. in chapters 27 and 28 of Title 23 that provides for a refund process for folks who have an exemption. So obviously at the pump, the person at the gas station isn't going to know if you're actually entitled to that. But then you file paperwork with the state to seek a refund, same way that you would on your income taxes. Your employer may not police whether you qualify for certain deductions on your income taxes, but then the state will review your paperwork and determine if you correctly filed and qualified for that deduction.
So, I'm thinking Heinsberg Police, Heinsberg Fire Department, the municipal trucks. So this registration fee is the minimum, it's very small initially, just to get the plate.
Right.
And then they can then add up how much fuel they've purchased and submit it to the state, to the DMV, or,
Yeah,
and then there's a refund given for the amount of amount of tax
Right.
they would have paid. Does every municipality do this?
yes.
Yes, they would, but
I know some municipalities get it bulk, they have their own
Mhm.
gas. And just.
So it depends on,
Yeah.
right,
So the way it works right now, a municipality pays the first time a discounted registration fee for all their vehicles to get their plates. Then when the 5-year renewal comes up, that fee is waived on any vehicle. Correct. Today, the difference here would be on any new electric vehicle that they would save the $15, the currently $15 first time registration fee. You would provide those plates for free.
No, right now you would still pay the plate fee. If the way it's written now, if this was not to pass, they would still have to pay the EV infrastructure fee along with the $15 fee for the plate.
So it's not eliminating the $15.
It's not eliminating that. Yeah,
It's
we would
just
still-
eliminating the infrastructure fee,
New quote bucks and 48.
so internal combustion.
which they're not paying,
Yes.
which we're not paying.
They're not paying a registration fee right now.
They're not paying any,
They're just paying for a plate.
if you pay for the plate, they want to make sure that we're not charging them the infrastructure fee. And in fact, we're not going to charge them the mileage-based user fee in the future either then, because they're not paying gas tax either.
Right.
Trying to line them both up. They're not getting an additional advantage or less advantage, or we're not incentivizing them
Right.
in this particular way to buy an electric
Yeah.
truck. So they're going to be treated the same way as the other part. We're not finding an additional incentive.
Correct.
Okay. And there's probably no way to understand the money impact because those trucks, as we learned, they're not buying them right now at all, but we're setting up for the future.
Correct.
Okay, but they will be, in effect, it'll be a consistency across the board.
Correct.
Okay. Does that sound correct, Dean? Oops, sorry.
I think so.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nope, you're all right.
Digging back in.
Nope, you're good. Okay.
So, yeah,
Section 7, veteran exemptions. And this one is for veterans that have had the assistance of the VA to purchase a vehicle. They currently do not pay a registration fee. There are a handful currently in our system right now. This is waiving that EV infrastructure fee for them as well to align with what current practices. And there are currently no electric vehicles in that scenario.
This,
I think in testimony, they said there were three.
Yeah.
Of those three, there are no electric.
is it a precedent that we're now giving a discount to a particular group?
it's really important to note, there are 3 vehicles. They are not necessarily 3 EVs. In fact, they're not at this point. So this group has had a long-standing waiver of these fees. It's a narrow category of veterans who suffered an injury while serving the United States that necessitates an adaptive vehicle. So they need either to adapt an existing vehicle or buy a specialized vehicle. And the US Department of Veterans Affairs gives them grant money towards the purchase. And then that our state has waived these other fees to help facilitate that purchase. Currently, there are 3. There is a chance that the language on lines 17 and 18 received a discharge under other than dishonorable conditions will expand that. Previously, we limited it to honorably discharged, which is a subset of the individuals who qualify under the Department of Veterans Affairs. And received a discharge under other than dishonorable conditions is mirroring the Veterans Affairs standard. So basically, if they qualify under Veterans Affairs, they go through a screening process there. So if you received a discharge that may be characterized as dishonorable, Veterans Affairs does an individualized review to determine whether you should actually qualify for the benefit. And then if they qualify, and only if they qualify, will they qualify for this exception. So we use the language to mirror them, understanding that they're going to screen these individuals coming in, but we could see this grow by a couple of individuals going forward who have qualified for the VA benefit, but haven't been able to take advantage of this discount.
So sections in effect 6 and 7 are, we passed a new fee for infrastructure fee, and now we're going back to make sure the language exempts the people that are exempted under the current way things are done.
Yeah, just aligning it.
Everybody sees that, we're at those sections, okay. Thank you.
Great. Section 8, SSDI and SSI credential fees. This is essentially reducing the fee for those in foster care under 23 who are transitioning out of foster care. So there obviously would be a monetary impact. And this is for non-drivers. This section is for non-drivers.
Oh, okay, so it's a operator's license. And the financial impact of this one, though, is not the 15,000 one we heard before. This was 300 to 400. Sorry, this one was in the $300,000 to $400,000.
Yes, it's almost 309,000. This is the reduction fees that people receiving SSI and SSDI can get a driver's license or an operator's privilege card for reduced fee, and their loss of reduction or the revenue reduction. This one is estimated to be $309,000.
I misspoke. It is for operators licenses. It's getting my sections confused, not non-drivers. And then one below that is for learner's permits. So essentially, this is reducing the fee for learner's permits, operator's license, and motorcycle endorsements for those transitioning out of foster care.
So section 8 and section 9 by policy sort of go together.
Correct.
Policy is the same on these, but the. Okay.
They're in separate sections.
I'm not sure where we'll go on as a committee and as far as hearing more on that or not. Don't want to make sure it's not the first time or the last time that you hear about it. We spent 3 months telling everybody we have no money in transportation. This is a significant amount of money. So it doesn't mean that but we will at least go back and look at it because it is not consistent with our bill presentation and our effort over the last 3 months. That does not mean that we will or won't do things, but I'm letting everybody know that that is something that I'm looking at from that very big message that's been our number one message as a committee since we got here. But so we're not solving that now, and I'm not even saying what we're doing or not doing, except that we're going to come back to section 8 and 9 and hear more about it because of that. So Representative Thomason and then Representative Dodge.
Logan might have the answer, but or not Logan, sorry, Damien, but just to clarify, I'm assuming that DCF isn't paying for, like DCF pays for this expense up to a certain point, but this is covering it beyond when DCF?
This is, the DCF is back in sections.
Right, but these are for, I thought this was for.
DCF doesn't pay for this.
Okay, they don't pay for it.
This would be a new benefit that doesn't exist today.
There's no language clarifying who it comes
It's not
from.
here, but Logan could probably comment on the financial aspect of it, but it's not a benefit that exists today. It is a new policy.
Correct. So currently people on SSI and SSDI pay same fee that everyone else does.
Mhm.
This would essentially allow them to pay a reduced fee to go to get inspection.
Well, and also individuals who were in the care and custody of the Commissioner of the Children and Families. Those are two
Sure.
separate groups.
For section 8,
Yeah, this is under section 8, D, like line 19. Or sorry,
Oh, okay,
maybe I'm
then
jumping
yeah.
ahead, but I just was trying to.
yes, this is,
Verifying questions, what we're looking for.
so, the DCF
Page 11 and 12.
That's
exemption
Mhm.
is in section 5, 8, and 9. The. In all three of those sections, the reduced revenue coming from DCF is the 15,000 that I mentioned earlier. The other portion of section 8, which is the $309,000 reduction, is from the SSI, SSDI reduction. Because the DCF exemption would also apply to driver's license, that is also included in this section, but there's sort of two things occurring here,
Mhm.
I believe. So there's the DCF exemption, so children in foster care no longer have to pay for a driver's license. There's also the fee reduction for people receiving SSI and SSDI.
Mhm. Okay,
Which would be new, and the DCF exemption would also be new,
Yeah, they're both new.
if I'm understanding this.
but the previous section I understood was you who are currently under the care custody of Commissioner of DCF, and this is saying individuals under 23 who were in the care. So that implies to me that DCF isn't paying this fee, those you should be paying that. Like, is this, I guess, is this another example? Like, is it a part of the 15,000 that would be paid to DCF and instead would come out of the T fund? Or is there additional lost revenue in this case?
My understanding, and maybe we wait for Damien to clarify the language on it, is that the aspects of this bill exempting anyone who's in the custody of DCF from these fees would cost 15,000 across the bill. So that's the sort of the last section of this section, whatever we're at, subsection 2 here. Then the first section, though, the B section of where it talks about individuals receiving the supplemental security income or social security disability income. That is the sort of larger expense. And then it also adds on the individuals in custody that were in custody would also not have to pay this fee. But I don't believe, and this is a question for Damien, I don't believe the individuals in custody of DCF have to also be receiving SSI and SSDI, but I guess I would want to follow up with Damien on that portion. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it's not fully answered, but I can maybe talk
Sure.
with Damien to clarify.
People all want to hear that. Representative Couch?
So my understanding is if you're on SSDI or supplemental income, SSI, you would, today, when you get your license or renewal, you pay the full price. If this goes in, you're gonna only pay the $20 fee, so you're gonna have a reduced fee. Is that correct?
So currently, if you're on SSI or SSDI and you can provide proof, there's a reduced rate for a non-driver ID, not for a license or a permit.
Okay, so a non-driver ID, you already have a reduction, but if you're a driver, there's no reduction today.
Correct.
This would give them the
This would
reduction
match.
down to $20. What does it cost to get a license?
I used to have all the fees memorized. They changed. 62,
$9 or something,
62,
62.
something like that for
So-
a 2-year
So, right, okay. Well,
or 4-year maybe it's.
so that says there's around almost 5,000 people on these programs if it adds up to 300,000.
Roughly 5.4% of Vermont receives one of these.
Okay. Yeah,
5.4%.
This has real revenue impact, although, you know, I can understand why it was put in there too, so.
Representative White?
I think it would be helpful to hear from somebody from DCF
Right.
regarding, you know, the genesis of these these discounts, and we could get a
There's
better understanding.
there's two different parts there. Where you're headed, I think I can tell you that it's already flagged as an area that we need to hear more on, that we're gonna need more than what we're doing for today. We're gonna hear more on this one. And that was what I was generally trying to get at in terms of its financial impact and its new policy, but it's also split, if I understand it, between two different areas. The DCF custody is one, it happens to be in multiple sections, but their impact is one thing. The SSI,
Yeah.
DI is another area, not DCFS specific. There are two different pockets of money, two different people affected. And one is perhaps minors and whatnot, and then the other is a new policy. They're both new policies, but a new group and a new policy discount, and of two different magnitudes of money. So yes, the answer to all of that is we need to make sure that we're all clear on it, and we need a little bit more than what we have today, and we'll have to figure out who that is that needs to come in and make sure that we hear the presentation of it.
I would request that we have some type of chart or some type of visual representation of what those changes are. Instead of just, I do better with charts.
Yeah.
Our committee assistant is always listening.
That's all.
Believe it or not, even when I put her on the spot. Yes, Representative Powell.
So, I mean, I think there's two buckets things that are going on here,
Yes.
as you explained. But, can I ask, was this initiated by the DMV or was it initiated in the Senate?
This was initiated by DMV
It was.
to align with the non-driver.
Okay, yeah, because the non-driver already gets that discount. So you're trying to make, hey, let's make them all one way or the other consistent. And so, okay, yeah,
I guess I'd like to go a little bit further into that, because my understanding from the commissioner's testimony that it is an all new administration in the DMV, and understanding who actually asked for it and who was the driver behind it and who wanted to come in and advocate for it, that wasn't able to happen.
Correct.
So it was originated in the DMV, and it's maybe a minor point. We'll get to it further when we get into the rest of it. But now, as far as who asked for it within the DMV and who was advocating for it, they no longer, that is not the current administration piece that is there to say that, but it was in their bill when they wrote, or in the bill when it was written from that. So it is a little bit, just a little odd twist to the story. So we're going to definitely hear more about this. Pretty much agreed. Okay, let's go. Next.
All right, so section 9 was also looped in with that learner's permit.
Yep.
So we'll go to section 10, commercial learner's permit. Currently, you hold your operator's license, and when you get your CDL permit, there is no photo on it. This is just adding a photo to that permit. Section 11, masking or diversion. So this is just prohibiting deferred sentences for CDL permit holders who commit traffic violations. It's a federal masking law, and so this is just aligning with federal statute.
And we gotta go drive by judiciary, and this is viewed as one of those we have to do to stay in line with federal regs piece. So we have to run that by them. Okay.
Section 12, license examinations. In plain terms, currently, if you are coming from another state moving to Vermont, you're required to take the permit test again. You're required to do the driving exam. This is waiving somebody from having to do that if they've already done that in their state, junior operator licenses or permits.
There would be some very, I assume, minor revenue impact to that. Because I'm sure you would charge for the test, but it would.
We charge for the road test or the exam, so minor revenue.
Very minor, de minimis sort of. Okay. Anybody have any? All righty. Push another page for me.
Great. Section 13, fee for examination. This is to collect the $29 scheduling fee for road tests beginning on July 1st of 2026. The fee can be taken for someone who is a no call, no show. The majority of the time, it's going to be transferred to the next appointment that they make for good reason.
Please do.
Is there a reason that this wouldn't be beginning sooner? I'm seeing it's beginning more than a year from now, and we heard it's like a pretty substantial issue. Is it an administrative reason or?
Just giving us time to implement it
Okay.
systematically with our rollout.
That's right, because in the section side by side that we got from Ledge Council, provides a $29 scheduling fee will be charged on or before July 1st, 2026. To your question.
Oh, okay.
It's-
Yeah, it's not, you don't have to.
I don't know that it says it in there. I'm looking
Space.
at this other form and I rarely ever see the expression on.
Or it's on or after.
You're saying if you can implement it sooner, you'll charge sooner? Is that what you're?
Yes, if we can
Okay.
implement it, as soon as we can implement it, we will
Didn't
charge
know
the
those
fee.
words. Thank you.
I'm not, I'm saying I looked at it twice because I'm like, so as soon as you can implement it, you're going to start implementing that.
Giving us some time
Yeah.
until then, just
That makes sense.
with our new rollout.
Is there a question about, we did hear something a little bit more about this in part of the rollout in terms of, I guess it is a policy piece, saying, do we want to charge it or not?
Move on to section 14. So this is essentially complying with federal standards. We currently call non-real ID card a driver privilege card, and this is updating the language to call them a non-real ID to conform with federal law. Section 15, license extension. This was added in the Senate as an early renewal, allowing anybody to renew their license at any point in time. It currently does not have a sunset date, and it currently does not limit them to any amount of renewals.
Representative Couch?
And prior to this, it was up to 6 months before it ran out.
Correct.
So potentially somebody who's going overseas or doing something, and they say, oh, I'm gonna be gone next year, I'll renew now.
Correct. So this would allow them to come in if they have used 1 year of their license, they could come in if they wanted to and renew it early. Get prorated for that 1 year and give them an additional 4.
Representative Lund?
And can you remind us, when you renew a license, how long does it last? Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years? 2 or 4? Okay. So even if I got my license in December, I renew it with this new law, next month.
Correct.
And I could renew it for up to 4 years.
Representative Couch?
Well, just to clarify on that, because otherwise the renewal period is sort of set to your birthday.
It
So
is.
if I renewed now, but my birthday is in August, would it renew for a number of birthdays or from like this date?
Even with this change, it would still go by your birthday.
So how many like if I got a 4-year license today with my birthday in August, when would the expiration date be in theory?
So you'd still have time left on your current license. If you were getting your license for the first time, it would be from now until your birthday would be 1 year. So from now until August would be 1 year, and then we'd add 3 more. If you've already had a license, it would go from now, because you still have that time left on your card. You'd basically get your full 4 years.
4 plus.
Four plus. Well, we wouldn't be allowed to add time onto it. You still have to have a 4 year, but you would get prorated for that time that you already used.
In terms of the cost, but not in terms of the time.
Not in terms of time.
So it would be basically 3 years from my upcoming birthday. So not a full 4 years.
Correct.
I see.
And the system that you're implementing, does this proration as part of what it does, or is this a math in public for your staff?
This is going to be problematic for us right now. It's going to be manual. So we have to, up until we roll out, once we roll out, it can be built in. But right now, this is all done manually, which could pose an issue for the amount of time it would take, because you'd have to have an override every time from a supervisor.
The manual process would be now until the rollout of the next section
Right.
in November? Okay. But you're confident it does handle it in the new scenario?
I can double check. Yes, I believe that they're building it in so that it's.
I guess if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to know if it is a manual process or it's part of what we can handle in the standard course of business out the window November. Okay. Representative
But
Powell.
I imagine there's some things you're doing manually now that you're like, I can't wait till November because it's.
As far as license renewals,
Yeah,
Or anything.
and other things like this.
yeah, there are manual processes for other things. I think this would open it up for quite a bit more of that. But yes, we do some manual things now.
I guess I'm unclear about the early renewal. So say my birthday's in January and I just renewed for 4 years. If I renew in June for another 4 years, what am I gaining?
When is your birthday?
Hmm?
When's your birthday?
In January.
Okay,
So in June, I renew for 4 years.
you would have from June until January.
So I'd get it, I'd gain 6 months technically on a license.
Right.
Okay,
And you can come in, with the way it's written right now, you can come in as frequently as you want.
so like, so I renew in June and then I can come back in December
If you
to
want
renew
to.
again.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's
Well, with the
Problematic.
DMV policies and systems, who's not gonna love going to the DMV as much as possible?
And you'll be able to do this online or not?
you would not be able to do this online.
Even come November, it will not be an online.
I will check to see if, I'm pretty sure it's built in, so you,
Okay, but the idea, I'm sorry, renewing your licenses in general will be online. If
yes.
Special extra pieces that may or may not have been anticipated.
Currently renewals are done online for licenses.
So
Okay.
We already have
one
that
other
built in
question.
online.
So the other question I have is what about the picture ID? So the picture is good for 8 years, 4 years?
9 years.
9 years, okay. So how, like you have to keep track of when that picture expires now?
It'll tell you online that you need to come in,
Oh, it will, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
and that's how it's in current practice.
Okay.
Online.
great.
That's my just initial comments definitely for this, but you know, it sounds like it's gonna be a little added burden as far as the processing and everything else. It's almost should, we as a committee sort of now waive the proration. Somebody wants to do it, fine, but you're gonna make up that difference on your dime. That proration would kick in November where the system's in place. And it's, you know, more of a smooth ride, but I just throw that out there for food for thought is there's gonna be a lot more. Allow it, but it'll be on their dime to make up that difference. So I just throw that out there. But I'm fine with the concept.
And section 16 is along the same lines. This is just for non-drivers and permits. The previous section was for operators licenses.
Representative what?
I just wanted to ask a question about Representative Corcoran's comment there. I mean, like, would that be simpler for the DMV to consider how they're handling that prorating to make it easier for the DMV between now and November? Does that appeal to?
So repeat that.
Also, Representative Corcoran was suggesting that the prorating of the fee, that not happen until November when the new system is in place. So I guess I'm asking you from the DMV, would that make it easier for your team?
I don't think it would either way.
You don't care.
Wouldn't matter.
I draw more comments and withdraw my suggestion. Yeah, forget it.
Obviously, by November, anything that's streamlined in the new system would help considerably. Right now, if we were to do it, obviously it would be manageable. So yeah, I can agree that it would be more work now.
Representative McCoy?
Okay, so my birthday's in January. I renewed for 4 years. In June, I decide to renew again. So currently, as this is proposed, you'll prorate my 6 months, say. And then am I charged the 4-year fee for really adding on 1 year?
You would, so the amount of time that you've had that, we would prorate and take it off for the 4-year fee.
Okay, so if I had, so I'd have 3.5 years left on my 4-year license, correct?
Correct.
So you would give me that as a credit and I would pay the 6-month fee. Okay, okay, just trying to figure that out.
Representative Tomlinson?
Based on how I'm reading it, though, it's rounded down, so you'd pay actually a year. You'd end up paying a little bit more than what you'd pay for the actual, if I'm reading it correctly, because it says, if 1 or more years remains before the expiration of the license or privilege card, the commissioner shall reduce the cost by an amount that is the number of years rounded down to the next whole year remaining. So,
3 years.
So credited.
yeah, so 3, so you
Yeah.
lose that, so you'd pay extra.
You pay for 1 year.
Yeah, you'd pay for 1 year, even though you're extending it for
Send
6
extra
months.
questions to them.
You'd still pay more.
Steer it with it.
Okay. Sorry.
How does that work? Okay. No. Okay.
Well,
Representative Casey?
why are we going through this hassle now?
The early renewals,
Yeah,
it was put in the bill in the Senate.
what was the grand wisdom on that? It just seems like we're sitting here trying to figure out all the confusion. I'm not arguing with you, but I just wondering, why the hell are we going through, sorry, pardon my, why are we going through all this?
And we're definitely gonna have that conversation when it comes to deciding whether it stays in or not. But right now, as far as the question is, but Damian could comment on that because of having been in the Senate and written the language. And that is definitely an answer. So when we decide whether we're keeping it in or not keeping it in or wherever we go, that is absolutely the case. But as far as the impact on the DMV and what it would or wouldn't do and how you can implement it, that's definitely what we can ask right now, but then.
I wasn't thinking that you brought it up and come up with this anyways. I appreciate what you're doing. I wasn't trying to.
You know, you're,
Totally understand.
It seems good, like, we'll talk about it later.
well, and when Damian comes back, that we can definitely go back and ask him what his view of what was written in the language and why they, or what the Senate commented on it, but we can't answer your question.
Right.
So until we go into committee discussion about it.
Where are we? Section 17. This is stating an intent that if someone does not have the right documentation for a real ID, that we give them the information on receiving a non-real ID license.
Section 18.
Section 17.
Sorry. Does this exist today?
No.
This will be something new for you to create?
Somebody we wouldn't offer various cards. I mean, we do have the information for them. What this is doing is aligning with the previous 2 sections. So the prorated fees, the early renewals. This is letting somebody know that they can get a non-real ID. And then section 18 is creating some kind of outreach, letting them know that they can renew early. Basically media.
Okay, so 17 is you're saying it's in person at the time they're asking for the request?
Correct.
That you would have some level of documentation that you don't currently have, but you would develop to give to somebody asking
Correct.
or pursuing this, their new license or their new non-real ID. You would have an information.
Right. So for anybody that
for people to give to them.
correct.
And then section 18 is, instead of on an individual basis, is public education outreach across Vermonters on material that doesn't exist today, but you would create and then put a public program to. That's what that,
Correct.
okay. And it doesn't exist today, but this law would ask you to do that. Okay. Representative Warren?
And just to follow up on that, so it's a bit of a change in practice for the DMV. So instead of just saying you don't have the correct identification to get this kind of ID, but we can offer you this, where the past they just said you don't have the right stuff, sorry.
Correct. And this is also for anybody who doesn't want to. They don't want to get a real ID because of the requirements coming in May 7th. This is letting them know, although the federal laws are changing, this is what you can do.
So you'd have some type of flyer or something.
Right.
For
communication.
Maybe like,
Yeah.
it's some IDs you could get, here's what you need for each of them.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Did you testify in the Senate Transportation about these dates of November 15th, 2025 to have this work done in section 18? Or am I moving to,
I did, that wasn't, the commissioner spoke on that.
Commissioner did speak on that? And do you know whether that date is, they felt they could meet?
That was to roll out with our new system.
That you would be able to have this campaign of information together during as part of that rollout? And they did testify, and the commissioner did testify on this.
Yes.
Okay. Representative McCoy?
Are you allowed to, get I guess, a privilege card or a non-driver identification, same years, 2 or 4 years?
Non-drivers are 4 years,
Oh, that just.
but for a non-real ID, you can do 2 or 4.
So non-drivers are automatically 4 years.
Correct.
For a privilege card, it's 2 to 4, like a regular drive, a real ID.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
The section that says reduced fees that are available to individuals who meet certain
I
requirements.
just have one more.
I'm sorry, I thought you were done, my bad.
So the early, what are we calling it? Early renewal, is that available on these privilege cards and non-driver IDs as well, or just on the real ID?
On all of it.
On all of them? Okay, thank you. Now we're done, I think.
Sorry, feel we can have as many questions as you want. I have a question on that section 18 in terms of the reduced fees that are available to individuals who meet certain requirements. We're not adding new reduced fees, or that you're talking about clarifying what's already
Correct.
available. Okay, this whole section on 18 is not a new policy, it's a new outreach. There's no new policy in 18, it's except for saying you need to communicate publicly what's
What we
available.
already offer.
But there is no policy in this part, but it is a public outreach. Okay. Representative Powell?
Yeah, I mean, I could see that section in 18. Because if the previous section on SSDI reductions goes in place, people with that would have no idea that there's now a reduction.
Right.
So, because when they apply, you don't know whether they're on SSDI. So you would need, if we did the previous section and others, then you would need to like, hey, let people know, hey, you can get a discount if you're on SSDI or SS.
Which is why it's not specific.
Yeah, right.
In the event that it didn't go through, we'd still have the outreach, but it wouldn't be specific to those because we already offer the reduced fees.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you.
Section 19, commercial driving instructors. This is establishing requirements for commercial motor vehicle instructors to include behind the wheel in theory. Currently, they are not.
This is part we heard about versus instead of number of hours, it's about their ability.
It's with the instructor being certified and having a certain amount of hours behind the wheel.
Is this to be in line with where practice or federal standards are today, or?
I can't say for sure. We did put that in there. This was a DMV section.
Representative what?
So from what I remember from recent testimony, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that this was an area that, like, to be a instructor for just a normal driver's license, there is a minimum years of driving required before someone can be instructing drivers to get their driver's license. But there was not a similar requirement for minimum number of years driving with a CDL before being able to be a CDL driver,
Correct.
or excuse me, instructor.
Correct.
So that's what we're kind of aligning the requirements for being a normal driver's license instructor to CDL instructor. Okay, thank you.
Section 20, motorcycle instructors. Reduces the amount of licensed experience as a motorcycle operator that's required to be a motorcycle instructor from 4 years to 2 years. So currently you're required to have 4 years of experience. We're reducing it to 2. A lack of instructors is gearing that. So you have somebody that has had a couple years of experience, but they haven't met the 4 years to become an instructor, but they do have the experience to be able to instruct. So we're reducing it down to 2 with the lack of instructors that we currently have. Section 21, motor vehicle taxes. This is a technical change, replacing NADA with JD Power. Already in practice, we're just clarifying the language to align.
I'm curious if, I've used the NADA in the past, the Blue Book, right?
That's Kelly Blue Book.
Okay.
But yeah,
I
same.
use them. So if you put in the same car, let's say, 2024, such and such, and you look at all 3, will they come up the same?
I'm not sure that they will. They're all, I have to imagine, fairly close.
And the reason, and I think it was told to us before, but the reason we're going away from the previous one to this new one is?
They were bought, JD Power bought.
Oh, right, okay.
About the other.
Yeah.
And we pay a fee to them each time we do it.
We do, so we can buy it by the year, we can buy it by the amount of lookups. But yes, we do pay a fee.
And one more, and I'm assuming the new system automatically does that.
It does, it's all built in.
Right, okay, thanks.
Representative what?
Can you just remind me what section we're on?
That was section 21.
The motor vehicle taxes?
Yes.
So somewhere in here, there's something about the change. Okay.
There's a definition change.
Data to JD Power. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Ask one of your other committee members here right now.
Hypothetically, you go to that NEDA book or the Blue Book for a price. What if you actually, I just gift a car, I'll just give Candace a car. She really paid 0. She still gets taxed.
She still gets taxed. If it's not a giftable relationship, she's still gonna pay
But
the
if
tax.
our his
What if it was my daughter?
daughter,
Then it would be a gift.
Yeah.
And she would not pay tax.
Oh, okay.
And there are several relationships that you can do that with.
What if it was a sister or brother?
Same. You still can. I think aunt and uncle are probably the only ones that are excluded.
So like your sister and brother, you do or you don't?
You don't pay tax. It's a giftable relationship.
Didn't know that.
So section 22, computation of taxable costs. Vehicles that are 20 years and newer will show up in Clean Trade on the JD Power site. Vehicles older than that do not. It's already in practice that we use the low retail value for those vehicles. This is giving the commissioner the power to develop a process which would be the low retail value. for those that did not have a clean trade-in value. Good.
Is
So I.
is this an issue?
So we also,
I was gonna.
what if you sell a vehicle, say I sell a vehicle to represent a case, but it's less than the amount that, say, maybe
JD Power, or, yeah,
JD Power. What if it's less?
you pay on the higher value of
You do.
the purchase price over the book value.
Okay.
What if she sold me that car and it was all dented to hell? How much is it, are you still gonna charge me the,
So it's two ways we can go. Is it ready to be on the road?
just barely, I mean, she didn't give me a
So-
great car.
You're,
Screwed me on it too, I think.
so you are attesting that it's roadworthy and inspectable, but the flip side of that is that you can get a dealer appraisal to bring the value down and pay tax.
Oh, so.
There is an option.
There is an option.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And that's only over 20 years old, or that's?
That's for any vehicle.
Is this the area that the lieutenant governor wants to be heard on?
Yes, the dealer appraisals
Okay.
or paying tax in general.
Or you could adopt him as your son. You could give him.
I take a look.
President Powell.
And can you do that now?
You can.
So this change to the new JD Powers doesn't change that. And so, if I, the vehicle, representative sold me, it's, barely drivable.
Mhm.
If it's drivable and I want to get it registered, entitled, then I'm gonna pay JD Powers. If I think, oh, it's no way it's worth that, then I can go to a dealer, and they already have that process now, where they evaluate, what they would sell it for, I guess,
Correct.
anyway. And if I'm buying the vehicle and I'm not registering it, then I don't have to pay the tax. I just can get a title.
Right. You only pay tax if you're going to be using it on the road,
Right.
registering it.
And then I assume there's a fee probably from a dealer to do this.
There is.
You both got it, Phil. Got the bad end of the stick on that one, didn't we?
Didn't get as good a deal on that track, yeah.
Okay, Section 23, refund. This is aligning with what's in statute for Title 32, where you're required to claim your tax credit within a year. This is putting it in Title 23. Section 24, refund upon loss of vehicle. Currently in statute, it says that you need to return your plates or your registration in order to request a refund, even if you had a loss of vehicle. This is giving the commissioner the option to accept other materials, proving that your vehicle was a total loss or that you no longer own it.
And this doesn't change how much you get back. We already have that program in place. This just says, you can show them the newspaper article about your car fire or something.
Correct. Exactly. Because there are other situations where you're not able to return your plates or your registration. Fuel tax refunds. This is going to shorten the period in which you can request a fuel tax refund from 33 months to 12 months.
And
And this would align with what's in the statute for other taxes, tax refunds.
anyway, we're gonna have to hear about, right?
Fuel deal.
We're gonna have to hear from somebody that.
Yeah.
Who deals in this? You're probably fuel dealers, I guess, right?
I thought we took testimony on this. And what I understood was that in a distributor environment, you can sell taxable, non-taxable fuel and vice versa, it doesn't matter. But and so what happened was one particular dealer sent in like 3 years of these slips to show that they had indeed paid taxes to a tax exempt entity. That's what it was.
Mhm.
And we thought that was a little over the board, over the top.
Mhm.
And that probably 1 year would be plenty
Yeah,
to
that's
bring
true.
it into a line. So that's what I remember as far as
From
testimony.
their, from their view, now we need to hear from the other side of the fence, right, the wholesalers, or no? Or was that the wholesalers?
That was the whole.
Oh, that was?
That was the wholesalers.
Oh.
No.
No,
That was the department.
That's what I'm saying.
Dealing with with this delinquent dealer.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, that's the story. I'm sure.
We did hear that from the tax
Correct, correct.
within the financial office of the DMV, but we did not hear from the people that needed 3 years to put together their piece, and they may not want this change or not, but we certainly going to hear the other side.
Yeah.
In that section. So, okay.
Section 26.
Representative Quinn?
Are we gonna let these people know that, oh, by the way? Make sure you get your tax credits in before we start.
We would update.
Okay,
for
you would let
documents.
them know that. Okay.
That many sections, yeah, Mark can test about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go over that later. So, okay.
Section 26, alteration of odometers. Clarifies that the penalty for alteration of odometers applies to all offenses described in the section. It's a technical change. Section 27 is creating a cross-reference to conviction, to the definition of conviction, which is not currently in those subsections. And this is for quite a few. So this is for 27, 28, 29, and 30, where it doesn't cross-reference the definition of conviction. And this is just solidifying that.
Those are purely technical.
Technical. Section 31, currently, the way it reads is that drunk driving in this section alone would be anything over 0.08. This is clarifying that it's 0.08 or over. But currently it states that it's over 0.08. So technical change, but an important change.
Imagine this is to line up with the federal rules, because that 0.08, I think, came from the federal government years ago.
And also our own title, which in every other section is 0.08 or above. This is the only section where it reads as if it's over 0.08.
So somebody somewhere got a 0.08 and got out of.
Somebody, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's usually your.
Doesn't mean you didn't do it.
Section 32.
I just have a
Oh.
question. The 0.08 bar, is there some kind of chart what does it take for somebody to hit a 0.08 in terms of how much you have to consume and how much?
It's how much you've eaten, your body
There are
weight,
charts.
age.
There are charts.
Yep, a little wheel. Actually, I haven't. It's like a little wheel chart.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's like a wheel chart that I have. You can, and there's various ones. They have them online where you depends on your body weight, age.
Yeah. Is there
How much
something on the
you've consumed.
DMV website? I'm just curious.
I'm not sure that there is. Agency of Health may have one.
Sounds like a committee assignment.
Drinking a wheel.
Followed by spelling.
Field work.
Field work.
To bring the breathalyzer machine back in.
That's right, exactly.
As many drinks in front of you and then have a test.
Right. That'd be.
Cabaret.
That'd be.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, all right.
I can have 4 drinks would be it.
All right, section 32. So currently on the civil suspension intent, it states that the notice can be used as a temporary license, which is not the case. So we are removing that from the form and from statute to clarify that it cannot be used as a temporary license.
Why did I have a?
I'm sorry,
I-
what section was that?
That's section 32.
For some reason I had a note here that we may have to run this section by the judiciary.
Yeah, definitely the one before.
This is, section 32.
Yes.
Judiciary on this. When we went through it with,
Oh, intermission mark, yeah.
when we went through this with Damien, for some reason I have a note here whether I need to go to judiciary with a question mark. I don't remember exactly why, but I have it on there. I gotta go through them already, so I guess. Representative McCoy?
When you, so you're pulled over and you are at .08 or above, whatever. So does this mean, do they take your license right then?
They don't physically take
They
it.
don't physically, but.
And I have to imagine that's why it was there originally
Okay, so, but are you allowed to drive?
that night.
It's not that night.
No.
But I mean.
You're allowed to, it depends on which violation it is. If it's your second,
Okay,
it's that you can request a hearing, but you're automatically suspended. But if it's your first and you
Yes.
request a hearing, then
If it's
you're
your
allowed to
first.
drive until
have your.
there's an actual conviction.
Okay, all right. So I don't understand what that meant there. But we're removing it, so, okay.
Section 33, fee for bulk electronic records request. Since we are now updating so many of our things to electronic, we don't have a fee for electronic fees. And so this is making it so that there's rather than having a per page fee, there's a document or an online document fee. And I think it's changing it to 33 cents per page instead of a sheet of paper, which we used to have bulk requests per paper.
Per record.
You round up to 31, I'm assuming.
Representative Powell?
Yeah, so if I ask for a record and you're not gonna make copies, you're gonna say, hey, here's the record. And it's 12 pages, PDF, 12 pages, then this would be 30.03 cents per page,
Correct.
as if you.
Because it's not a physical paper copy.
Yeah.
It's an online electronic copy.
So it's
And
per
physical
record.
Sorry.
Per record.
More full.
Or did I say, yes, per
Yes, per
record.
record, so 31 cents. Really.
Right.
For the 12 pages.
Because it
Total.
wouldn't be like 12 pages of documents.
Right.
It's gonna be per record now, so it's because it's all electronic.
Okay, so it's not the page,
Correct.
and so it could be 100 pages.
Could be.
And we're not changing anything if I ask for a hard copy,
Exactly, it would still be the per page fee.
that's 30 cents.
Yeah.
What kind of?
Yeah.
What kind of records are we talking about?
It could be any record.
And you deal with these requests now regularly or?
These are bulk requests. This is a kid is doing a project and wants a big stack of documents for their project. It's somebody that's looking for stats for a particular reason. They're about to propose legislation and they want all the stats for whatever it is. They don't have anything on hand.
And our data privacy issues that have been floated around this building, playing this session. How do we know what records and what's available, what you're answering, and do we need to dig it out? Is that?
This would not violate the PPA. This would all just be public information. It wouldn't be personal information.
This is establishing a fee to an activity we already do.
Correct. Yeah,
And
nothing
now
would change.
Less manual of it, more electronically of it.
Correct.
So it is a task that we already perform
Correct.
at the DMV.
Yes.
Representative White?
I can't imagine that 30 cents covers the labor associated with your employees having to go and dig up a file and send it to whoever.
Everything has been migrated to our online system. So rather than having to go through files like they used to, or going to the storage so that you look through records, it's all done online. So they're just pushing a button and finding the records that are already available.
So maybe 30 cents is an accurate amount to cover their.
You can't say it's really a fee change because it's It's similar to what we're already doing for a page, it's just for an electronic record. So, yeah, it would be the equivalent.
Is there any discretion to the commissioner on this, frankly?
I don't think so.
Whatever, 10,000 or 20,000 record type of thing. If there's a discretion, I don't want to make something out of it, but I'm sorry for what you've done. I apologize.
I'm just kind of perseverating on, recognizing that we've got all this revenue going down and just seems like it could be an opportunity to charge a little bit more, from a request. Do you have an opinion on that?
Not at this time.
It's still late for one eye.
Yeah. I can certainly look into it and
Okay.
give you a breakdown, more of a breakdown.
Oh. I mean, I don't want to ask for you to go digging through records. I'm just thinking like, seems to me that's a low amount of money to pay for a records, request. But I'm good.
I guess I would, Representative Clark.
Yeah, not knowing how many FOIA requests you get and
Right.
how much time is involved. I mean, or if you have habitual individuals who request all the time. I'm not sure if you
I can
do.
certainly speak to somebody and
Yeah,
get
I
a
mean,
little bit of
again,
background
I
on.
mean, for
How
30
often?
cents, how often? Is it, you know, one or two individuals that are taking up employees' time?
I know
30
that
cents doesn't,
I can't say that we don't get a ton, we don't get a lot.
Yeah.
It's not
right.
just a sole task of somebody
Right.
every day.
If we were to ask you how you arrived at that fee, you could probably tell us at a future time.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
I remember
Records.
talking about it, so.
Yeah.
Can probably go back to my notes.
And we could change it, right, if we wanted to, right?
Yes, sir. That's what, yes. Yes, we could.
Well, historically,
If you can get 6 other people, 5 other people to agree with it.
historically, the per record, the per page fee was based on the amount of time the employee took to go get the record, find it, photocopy it, and the amount of the photocopying paper and the copy machine itself and the toner. They came up with, I don't know what it used to be, 23 cents a page or 25 cents a page or something. After 25 minutes or 30 minutes. I mean, it was this whole thing they came up with when they first started charging. So now I'm not quite sure I'm sure it's kind of a machination of that based on that time. That's how we originally came to the per page fee. Statewide and municipalities had to follow that as well, so.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're on section 34. This is updating the weights for truck registration fees to reflect the department's fee schedule.
Why are we updating these? I mean, it's, feels like we're increasing the weight.
It wasn't increasing the weight, I think it was simplifying it. Simplifying the truck weight schedule. If you read in the statute, I believe this is the section that has it, it's wordy. From one weight up until another weight, in between, this is just clarifying, this is exactly what the weight is and this is what the fee is. And that will match what we.
So somebody owns a certain truck, they're not going into a certain different weight,
Right, no, they're all the same.
so.
Section 35, purchase and use tax. This is just clarifying, and creating a cross-reference to the definition of purchase and use tax across Title 23. I'm sorry, 32.
Still given a third.
Ready to tackle that one yet?
Put that in your mind. So,
Got my vote. she's suggesting that we address the 1/3 piece and throw it into the DMV bill. Yeah.
One,
She asked about purchase and use tax. She said this section doesn't send.
okay.
This eliminates sending the 1/3 to education. This eliminates sending the 1/3 to.
Right?
Yeah.
No, and
We get caught, we just threw that little line in.
can we put that in?
Big notice?
You're not gonna, when you go over the ways and means to testify, Logan, would you still file that under de minimis? It doesn't change the impact to the taxpayer.
It doesn't.
That's true. It would be a de minimis change to the state revenues,
It is.
just within
Just saying.
the coffers,
Just housekeeping.
within the cells. Yes, Representative Pouch.
I'm not suggesting we get into this, but we did get testimony about the fact that there's a couple of loopholes here in some of the weights. And that if you claim your truck is higher than it actually is, then your fees go down.
The max tax
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah. So I'm not saying, but perhaps next year we can dig into that.
I was just gonna, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't remember a whole lot of discussion about all these truck weight definitions changes. And I do remember what Representative Pouch was referencing about the max tax, so I would be open to a little bit more testimony on the details of these truck weights.
So this wouldn't have anything to do with the max tax, but yeah, this is just making the language easier to read so that it matches our fee schedule.
So this,
Or our fee schedule says, if it's from here to here, this is what you're paying. In statute, it's very, very wordy.
Just clarification. right?
It's just
no change in
technical correct.
the, the amount collected or, right,
Right.
just clarification.
The weight changes in here is change things, it says above 50,000 to say up to 49,999 and then 50,000 and up above it. So just that aspect of it is more about how it's programmed into the system and to clarify.
That's how we have it.
But the issue of the max tax is a separate, potentially separate issue that's not in this
Right.
part, but could be something that the committee wanted to look at along with like same theme, whatever, there was some sort of leakage ideas around some of the tax testimony that we heard from the DMV, which may or may not be something we'll dig in, but we did get testimony from Ledge Council on this particular piece being clerical of nature.
Yes. Where are we? 35. Oh, no, we did that one. It's just a definition, clarification. Section 36, collection of tax. Requires the commissioner to establish an appeal process for purchase and use tax and to create education and outreach materials for the appeal process on the amount of tax that you're paying. Currently, we do have a process for an after the fact refund, which is included in this. Section 37, excessive speed. This is adding a cross-reference to the statute that prohibits excessive speed and including it in a point assessment for operating 30+ miles over the speed limit.
I got behind, I'm sorry. This section 36, is that also part of what the Lieutenant Governor was getting involved in piece about an appeals process? Purchase.
I'm not sure if that was included in that or not. But he did, there was mention in the Senate about creating some kind of an outreach. And it may have had to do with what we talked about with the lieutenant.
This section on 36, these disputes that, yes, the commissioner's gonna have to write up a procedure. The dispute is over the purchase and use tax on a vehicle when they're buying it.
And we currently have a review process for that too.
So commissioner shall establish procedures for taxpayers to file an appeal regarding that. So that would be after they got a decision, then they would be appealing that decision. Is that correct? So this is where you would go to the Is that where the T-board would take over an appeal or not? Just
For the hearings.
I did move us back to 36, I'm sorry. So. Maybe somebody can clarify where I'm at here. Peter's on.
So you're talking about the language that says the commissioner shall establish a process for taxpayers to file an appeal regarding the taxpayer's liability.
Yes.
Okay, and then. So yeah, this is basically, and as I understand it, the department already has a process, and this is essentially clarifying language that they have authority to establish that process. And it provides due process to individuals before they have to pay the state tax, gives them the right to appeal it. And was there a follow-on on that question there about further appeal or?
So we have a process that's in place, but it's not documented now. Is that what we're sort of saying?
Yeah, so a number of the changes in this bill, a good way to think of them is that they were raised by DMV's attorney saying.
It was a new, okay.
I'm noticing that like. We've got some implied authority here, but it's not explicit. It'd be great if we could make it explicit or clarify what it is. And so she and I were working from the early fall, kind of, if she found a section where there was concern about language, we would start discussing, is this clear or does it make sense to clarify? So I think this is in the nature of just clarifying language, unless I missed something with the department's background information on it.
Thank you, Representative Warren.
I just have a question regarding how user-friendly this is, like, when I think about buying a car, registering a car, and paying the taxes, you know, you've got the dealer, you've got whether you bought it in Massachusetts or in the state. I personally, I just kind of like pay whatever the DMV tells me to pay. Like, does the public, is it clear to them what the taxation is and when they can or should be looking at an appeal? Like,
We do have on our website, there's a section on purchase and use tax that explains what's charged, how much it's charged, the book value, and then the appeal process, which is the dealer appraisal.
okay, so it's all on the website. Okay. Thank you.
I think we did excessive speed, tinted windows, section 38. This is repealing the amendments from last year's bill about tinted windows. It's not clear. It references a federal CFR, which is not clear on the definition of a tinted window. And so it would be hard for us to open up the book and implement that. So we're asking to repeal that.
So, I mean, there are some people who you can't even see into the vehicle.
That's addressed in the next couple sections.
We need you to, because you came back in, or I don't know if we did back in the beginning.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So we repealed the old language, but then in section 39, 40 and 41.
Okay, we're gonna.
They added back in language, but just what we did is that document. It's like, so you have a federal regulation that is long and dense. And then in there it has a tiny reference to an engineering standard that's applied to windshields. The engineering standard itself is, I think, like 45 pages. It's better. It's long. It's also quite dense. And buried in that engineering standard is a standard for light transmission, which is the issue with tinting on windshield and windows. So what they did downstairs is instead of referring to the standard that refers to another standard, which then opens up the department to the possibility of, did we implement legislative intent? Because it also talks about strength glass and construction of the windshield with the 2 layers of glass, et cetera. Is there something else we're supposed to be doing here? Is it just light transmission? And instead just said, if you look on page 50 of the bill, that the light transmission shall not be less than 70%.
Okay, so, and I know some some of the tinting comes from the manufacturer when you purchase the vehicle, but after sale, when you own the car, people are tinting.
Right, so the vehicle manufacturers cannot produce a car that has lower than 70% light transmission for the windshield. And the windows to the left and right of the driver, including those little windows that when I was a kid, you could bend. And now it's where I slide my smartphone. It perfectly fits into that little gap, and so it's where I tuck my phone when I'm in the passenger seats. But anyway, those windows are also covered by this 70% light transmission.
Okay.
After the fact, you
Like, is
can.
anybody regulating that, or?
Well, so this basically says that if you show up for inspection, let me update the inspection manual. It'll be regulated at inspection.
Okay.
But it's worth noting that some states allow a much darker tint
Oh,
than other states. So I used to live in the Southwest. Down there, it was normal to have a very dark tint because we also did things, I mean, this was a long time back, so cars have changed, but we would do things like put something like AstroTurf or something to insulate the dash, because those old foam-filled dashes, they would heat and cool every day as your car went from like 70 to 100 and way up. And then eventually they'd split open. And so people would put insulating material over their dashes, darken their tints. And I did know folks who then traveled up north where we don't allow the tinting and would get in trouble up there because they get pulled over in states where the tint wasn't allowed. And yeah, for a variety of reasons, but yeah, it is kind of an issue across the country because the conditions are so different. Anyway,
I would think we would need it
Yeah,
as soon as possible,
yeah,
Don't get enough.
especially in the winter.
So just to clarify, so this is making it simple just by saying that 70% transmission is the rule for the two windows and the windshield. And then at inspection, are they going to be able to measure that?
They would have to be able to, because down, we're going to make it a fail at inspection, so they can
Okay.
be able to measure that with a reader.
And you have that equipment available to do that today?
They don't now.
They don't measure it now.
They don't measure
The
it.
equipment's.
How would inspection stations then?
They would have to purchase the device to be able to measure that.
And didn't we take testimony, there's over 1,000 inspection stations? And every one of them would have to have a device in order
To be able to fail it, yes.
to, and how much does this device cost?
It depends on you can get one on Amazon for $25. It depends on the quality of the machine.
But could we allow everyone to have a different one and still be able to do it?
There is no language currently.
And did the DMV take a position on this in these sections in their testimony in the Senate?
I don't recall.
Well, I guess I'd say you want this to stay in the bill, or you don't want this, there are inspection stations that want this in the bill or not want
I
this.
would have to say that they would not want this to fail. I mean,
But I guess the question is where the DMV stands on this, is whether I need to have an inspection dealer come in or not, I guess would be a question, but the DMV's position on this portion
it
of
would be
it.
worthwhile hearing from them. I think that making it an advisory would at least notify them. It's currently in statute as a civil violation.
Right.
But an advisory would at least let them know that they are at risk for that.
Okay, Representative Powers?
And I believe we got testimony last year from Department of Public Safety that they were concerned about this. And that, they're, I guess, concerned about approaching vehicles, they can't see in them. And also drivers, like trying to make eye contact with the other person at the four-way stop and like, I don't know, are they going, are they waving me? I don't know. Yeah. So we did get testimony about, from public safety, I believe, that this is an issue. And then, there was some discussion about, the people who do aftermarket tinting, they certainly know what they're providing. And they can measure this. So I guess the question is, if it's added as a safety issue, because it could either be an advisory or a safety issue, that this adds it as a safety issue at inspection. And to be an inspection station, you have to have whatever equipment's required. This would require an additional piece of equipment.
Correct.
Does law enforcement have those?
No.
Things? So how do they know if somebody's? How would they know if somebody's past 70%?
Sure.
Well, DMV enforcement,
Can ask them.
how do they know what
Yeah.
they do or don't enforce?
If it's something
I guess it would be from the perspective is, I guess, we're looking for a little more, we're gonna have to take more on this. And we're gonna have to also understand what the DMV's position is and what public safety position is, but we did have some, you're right, we did have some of this before. And for a bigger picture, as we have a number of inspection related bills on the wall, a number of inspection related questions, is the purpose of inspection the safety of the vehicle? Is the purpose of the inspection the safety of the interpretation of what's safe on the road or not? And where does that, what level are you asking of an inspection station to do in terms of when it comes to an enforcement or a law related to the operation of the vehicle versus the safety of the actual vehicle itself and whatnot? Those are just kind of bigger picture questions. And one spot that I could float out there is one of the things that was discussed as we look forward is because there's so many rules about inspections, just throwing it out to the committee to think about, and because technology is changing dramatically, we are also headed towards autonomous driving vehicles, and we're headed towards AI scenarios in vehicles or all of those decisions. Perhaps our inspection process is going to have to, we may have to mandate that it be reviewed every X number of years instead of trying to deal with them on a case by case basis, but that perhaps that we should have some process that requires an entire review of the inspection manual and process every X number of years in order to incorporate everything that has happened up to that spot, because we're trying to deal with them as one-offs right now. And maybe that's not the right approach. Maybe the right approach is that we educate everybody that there's going to be a review every X number of years instead of trying to handle them one at a time and piece by piece. But that's something that I would throw out to members to think about, whether that's something we may or may not include in this bill, but whether that, a lot of what we spend time on one-offs and one-offs and one-offs, maybe the entire process should be mandated to review at a certain time.
The purpose of the inspection is for the safety of the vehicle itself on the road. And so I can't say for sure that a tinted window is not making it safe to be on the road. Whereas, a rusted outdoor or a piece of equipment on the vehicle that's going to fall off, bald tires would be a safety issue on the road. I don't think that a tinted window would be in that same category.
Potentially.
Yeah, I would say the Department of Public Safety might have a different opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
And we would at some point have to decide what we're gonna keep in or not. And what I'm looking for versus us making that decision right now, but is should the entire thing be reviewed every X number of years to adapt to technology and concerns that are coming up? We still obviously always have the option as a committee to try to address the law every year. So. Anyway. Thoughts, so. Tinted window sections.
There's a lot.
Multiple, 39, 40, and 41. We're gonna have to, at least in committee discussion or in testimony, go back to them, I would think. Okay.
So we'll skip ahead, I guess. Unless there are any other questions, I can skip to section 42, all terrain vehicles.
Section.
This is allowing for the definition of an ATV to increase from 64 inches wide to 72. And from my understanding, this is for the tires, bigger tires that are being produced for these ATVs.
just heard about. We did hear testimony on ATVs. Do we have any questions? Okay,
And our last section, 43, purchase and use study. As we previously discussed, Lieutenant Governor's concern, this is a purchase and use study on modifications or issues with the current purchase and use collection.
this is,
So the concern from DMV would be that we're in the middle of our rollout right now. We have fewer staff that are working on the project. So this would take away from that monetarily and labor wise to do a review.
it actually, just trying to. What exactly does this one need to do here, section 43?
And the study also includes the review of the inspection manual for warning lights that are not related to safety issues.
And who requested this?
This was put in by the Senate.
What was the purpose?
There was concern around how much is being charged for purchase and use or how it's being determined, as well as paying a certain amount of tax and then finding out that your bill needs to have X amount of dollars worth of work done to it for an inspection.
Don't we already have a way to get out of that?
If we have a dealer appraisal process,
Right.
lowers the cost. Yes, we have things in place currently.
So the DMV is not in favor of this section.
Correct.
LG wants to be heard on this.
Oh, this is a section.
I was guessing that's the couple of sections that he wants to speak to, I believe. So, okay. I suspect there's not a simple part to go back, which part of what we're going to do next is looking at which parts you're in favor of and not in favor of, and which ones we need to have more testimony for. So that is what we're going to do with committee discussion after our break this morning, which is making sure that we're all on the same page of which ones we need more testimony on, what are the finances of each one, any legal questions on them. That's what our plan. We're going to make sure that we're all on the page of what needs to be addressed in the DMV as it currently stands moving forward. Representative Howe?
And what about other things we might be considering to put out?
We can do that as long as we make sure we get, at least for this morning,
Yeah.
we gotta make sure that we gotta get through this part, and then we can say what else we want to be able to add on, and there are at least 3 people that have asked for things to be considered to be added on, so that's part of that, and so that we could jump into that, but we gotta make sure we know what we're doing on what it is as is. So I'm not sure if there's other questions for us to looking to try to answer that, if there's questions for the DMV while they're here about any particular section that we noted, whether they are for or against, or that we need additional clarification from them. Representative Powell, please.
And just to clarify, because I didn't understand, you had mentioned the lieutenant governor was interested in this section. Was their interest because concerned about it or wanting to see it move forward?
There was testimony from Lieutenant Governor on a general concern around lower income Vermonters paying X amount of dollars in tax and then having to pay X amount of dollars in fees for an inspection to fix the vehicle. And the Senate, in response to that, put this into the bill.
Who's in favor?
And I don't. So you can push back on the purchase and use tax if the vehicle's not really worth that amount of money. The inspection is up to the inspector who does it, what they charge.
The inspection fee itself, yes, I think
Yeah.
the bigger concern was paying a lot of money for an inspection for something that's not safety related. after having already paid a lot of money in purchase and use tax. And like we've discussed,
But-
we already have.
But our safety, our inspection process is safety related.
Right.
So I'm not sure, where there's savings here to be found if we have decided we're gonna inspect vehicles for safety. And if your vehicle's not worth what the NBA or whatever the is, there's a way out of that.
Correct. Dealer appraisal.
What else would this find? You're not sure. Okay, yeah.
Representative Burt?
I think following up on that, yeah, that was what several years ago changed it so that all the inspection road safety related, are you referring to the onboard diagnostic light?
Yes.
Okay. So that's the issue, and that issue is air quality.
Correct. It's emissions, which is regulated.
So this is looking at if your light is on, whether that's a safety issue. Okay, so that's.
Links to emissions.
Okay, Representative Welch?
Yeah, John, the lieutenant governor is looking to save money when that light comes on and the garage tells you gotta pay $1,700 to get that light off. Stuff like that.
And he testified in the Senate related to that.
He testified in the Senate, yes.
Representative Burt?
We went through this a lot several years ago, and we were getting waivers, and there were waivers for time waivers and different kinds of waivers, and we had testimony from Megan O'Toole about the air quality issue from ANR. So I think
We probably want her on the list again if we're gonna vote on that. I'm sure.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So while we still have our deputy commissioner and everybody else is here for what we're gonna do we're gonna take a break out there and we're gonna come back at 11:15. And my goal is that we are going to go right back through sections 1 through 43 in terms of, are there any that we agree on, that we don't need any additional, well, let's be more clear. Which ones are of concerns that we need additional testimony on, that we need additional understanding of the money on, that we need to dig further into? I want to make sure that we have a game plan of, in effect, getting witnesses there out per section, or there are any that we can sort of check off. So if we are looking at, are we comfortable with who asked for it, what the nature of it is, what the money is, who the witnesses, if we need to have them. So we want to, are we looking at check marks or follow-ups next to the 43 section? So if you have something in those, and then if we get through that, then we'll also go through after the floor this afternoon. If we don't finish it this morning, we'll go after in terms of making clear what else we're going to dig into. But I want to make sure before we get done this morning that we know what sections we are going to dig further into. And then with the understanding that we have to make policy decisions on those particular sections. We have to hear from the other sides on any other piece. And if we can check off ones that are truly clerical in nature that we can check off and we don't have to revisit. That's what we're going to try to do with our legislative council and JFO and the DMV in the room, hopefully still for the rest of the morning. So is that at least clear what we're going to, that'll set our game plan for next week, as far as all the testimony that we're going to bring in the rest of this week and next week, as far as getting to the end of the DMV bill. At least the as written portion of the DMV bill, to be fair.